Welcome to the reading of Turning 25 on my 52nd birthday. This is a story of my life right after my divorce as I grew into a new woman. Please comment any questions on the video below. I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And thank you so much. Please like and subscribe also. Thanks. On to chapters 7 and 8 in this video. Veronica arrived at the office and began answering emails. She not only provided training for her customers, she also did a lot of support work. She would have a busy day today. She was working on a new procedure for one of her clients, and she was hoping to finish the reports and the documentation showing them how to run the process. Veronica is very good at her job. Her mind works quickly, and she loves to help customers either with training or with just questions. Normally she loved her job, but today it was very hard to focus. Rick sent her a text in the morning, and that was most wonderfully erotic. It made her shudder when she thought about it. He just made her body feel so feminine, so wonderful. She hadn't felt like this in 20 years. It made her think back at her marriage and how she doesn't remember Jerry ever even remotely making her body and mind feel like she did right now. This one encounter with Rick is making her constantly want more. During one of her breaks, she sent him a text that he owed her. The first time was nice, but she didn't quite climax. So she decided to use this to keep him wanting more from her. It worked for her. Next thing you know, Rick is suggesting they meet at her place after work. So he could take care of her. Her problem was that she was not used to being with anyone, and it was hard for her to completely relax. She wasn't sure if this had to do with her not feeling good about herself or just learning how to relax in general. She wasn't worried after all. She had sex only once in the last 10 years, so things will get better, right? She was enjoying thinking about having sex again for the remainder of the day. Veronica felt relaxed and peaceful. Her eyes were smiling, probably more than they had in years, or maybe ever. She was having a hard time concentrating as it got closer to the end of the day. She felt like she was 20 again. It was so exciting, and he was so ridiculously sexy. She felt like she was in heaven. The anticipation made her body scream with excitement. She arrived at her house around 6 in the evening. He walked in, and they went right up to her bedroom. There wasn't even much foreplay with him. It was always just getting down to business. Their clothes came off. She sat down on the bed, and he pushed her back and opened her legs. He was on his knees on the floor. He began kissing and licking her. It felt so wonderful to have a tongue between her legs. He had his tongue everywhere. He pushed it inside her. Her eyes shut, and she could not think of anything else but having him inside her. She didn't want to stop what was happening right now, but she was so warm and wet that she just could not relax enough, and she was not going to climax anyway. She felt her body tense. She tried to relax, but she also she didn't want to put that much pressure on herself. Sex didn't always mean having an orgasm for her. She wanted him in her and wanted him on top of her. She pulled him up onto the bed, and he was not expecting that at all. He was only trying to please her, and she said, "No, I need you now." He helped her pull him up and put his hardness inside her. She loved the feel of when he first entered her. She looked straight into his eyes. Her eyes told the story. They let him know how captivated she was with him inside of her. Her eyes pleaded with him to make her feel whole again. He put her legs over his shoulders. At first she hesitated. After all, she was not that young anymore. She didn't know how her body would respond, but there was no problem with her joints or limberness. It was such a wonderful feeling to allow herself to be vulnerable, but at the same time she was still slightly apprehensive about allowing herself to become vulnerable. She raised her head slightly to watch him go in and out, and she did not think of anything else but being with him and feeling so in tune with her physical being. It only lasted about 20 minutes, which was quick when it came to him. But he was driving back to Fort Collins, so he didn't want to be at her house too late. When he left, she opened a bottle of wine, poured a glass, and turned on some music. As always, with her and music, she started dancing. She spent the remainder of the evening dancing and drinking. She didn't mind dancing alone. Matter of fact, she preferred it. She was becoming her own being again. Remembering and finding who she really is. Not who she was when she was married. This whole affair with Rick was not only making her feel good about her being a woman in general, but helping her discover who she really was as a person. This was turning into much more than just sex with a man. It was truly the beginning of a new life. The rest of the week did not hold any surprises. She went to work, taught some online classes, answered questions, caught up on emails. She could have had sex every night with Rick. She could not get enough. It was frustrating. She asked if he wanted to come together or get together on Thursday, and he said no, not tonight. She was disappointed, but figured he wasn't that far away. There certainly will be more encounters. She spent a couple evenings drinking too much and dancing, and when she wasn't doing that, she would sit in the bathtub and write in her journal and just listen to music. She was becoming obsessed with wanting sex. While she enjoyed Rick, he was not all she wanted. She could not count on him to keep her happy sexually. After all, he wasn't that close, and he had different responsibilities than she did. So she joined an online dating website, but that was just not seeming to pan out. It really was hard when you're traveling so much. It also didn't suit her. This was just not the way she wanted to find a man. Sunday morning, she woke up and sat on the balcony, enjoying some coffee. Rick sent her a text asking her what she was doing. She told him, then he asked if she wanted to come over a little later. She said yeah, she wasn't doing anything anyway, so why not go see him? She finished getting ready, added a little makeup, and put on some cute jeans and drove to his place. When she got there, he poured her a drink, and they sat down and talked a little bit. They always had a pretty good conversations. She really enjoyed that. Not only could they have sex, but they could have intelligent conversations. She always let him make the first move. She was still lacking some confidence. Much better than a week ago, but not completely there yet. He came to her and kissed her just enough to let her know it was time. That was the only thing that she needed to get started. She took off her shirt and her bra, and he undid his belt. She helped him slide his pants down. They were still standing. She got as close to him as she could. She began sliding her body down his. She felt his hardness on her stomach and kept it touching her body as she very slowly lowered herself to her knees. His dick passed through her breast, and she stopped there and slowly moved up and down so that it rubbed between her breasts. She reached the ground with her knees, and she took him in her mouth. Took him in her hands, just touching the top of his penis with her mouth and tongue. Sorry. Just teasing him ever so slightly. He was watching her with his mouth slightly open. She could just see that he was having a hard time not thrusting himself into her mouth. She wrapped her tongue around his hardness. She was enjoying this just as much as he was. She spent about 10 minutes enjoying him. He pulled her up to him, and they walked into the bedroom. She took her pants off and laid on the bed, and he put her legs on his shoulders and slid into her slowly, and then started going very hard and fast. She could watch him move in and out forever. She so enjoyed watching it. He looked so sexy when they were fucking. His facial expressions, his chest, his tattoos, everything just made her sigh. She appreciated being able to look him in the eyes and comfort and not feeling ashamed. Such a wonderful feeling to have such a comfort level with a man. Rick turned her over and entered her from behind. She never used to let her husband, her ex, do that. Or maybe he didn't want to. Rick enjoyed so many different positions, so he worked so hard, maybe hard and for so long. They were both always sweating when they were done. The only thing is sometimes she wished he was a little more sensual than sexual. She wanted to be held and hold a man. She wanted to feel a man touch her everywhere. Veronica appreciated that sex with Rick was not just 5 or 10 minutes, but instead it could last for 45. So far, every time was so much fun. Playful was the perfect way to describe it. When they were done, there was no holding or laying together. He was up and in the shower. She laid on his bed while he showered and just dreamed. She needed this time to just allow herself to smile from the inside, to also keep that feeling in her memory, pile it all inside so she could remember this feeling for a long time. She dressed when he was in the shower. She went into his living room and actually just sat on the floor leaning against the couch. Rick joined her in the living room. He turned on a movie and they watched, but actually they mostly talked. It was nice how well they could talk. She stayed with him until dinner, and then they grabbed a bite to eat, and she went home. So that was 7 and 8. I mean, there's really not much to say about that. You know, it pretty much explains itself. You know, yeah, I don't know what to say. It was just, you know, still a fun time. This was still a very good time. It was still new to both of them. He was pretty, at this point, he was still pretty good about, you know, the correspondence and things like that. She really did. She probably could have had several men because she really was wanting it all the time. And it makes sense when you don't have that for so long that, you know, you really just want to make up for lost time. Also a little bit to do with age, you know, being in your 50s and you're finally feeling that way again. You feel like you don't have that much time and you really want to, you know, you've never felt good about yourself and now you do, and or you're getting to feel better about yourself and you want to get out there and let other people know how wonderful you feel. So, but this was still a fun time. So that was 7 and 8. Thanks.